Hello and welcome to the Khayrion podcast, your guide to everything concerning the politics and business of the Middle East, North Africa, and beyond.
Hello and welcome, dear viewers. I'm Khayrion, the CEO of Khayrion, and please welcome my dear guests, Professor Erzsébet N, Rózsa, and Professor László Csicsmann, the senior researchers at Khayrion. Thank you very much. Today, I would like to discuss the issues and events that are going on in Syria. However, in a little bit maybe differently than the mainstream media does. We all know what has happened. Today is December 14th, by the way. We know what happened in Syria in the past week. The bad guy is gone, and we have another guy who's, maybe not that good. So we know that everybody is very worried about what the future is going to bring in Syria. We know the background. We know that nothing in the future is certain. We're clear of that. I have a couple of questions which I am concerned with as far as the events in Syria go, and I have not really found the answers for them in the mainstream media. That's why we're sitting here today. So, my first question is, we all know that Bashar al-Assad and his closest family are in Moscow. Where's the rest of the family? Where's the extended family? Especially his brother Maher, the head of the dreaded 4th Division. Has he fled the country? Or is he hiding somewhere in the mountains of Latakia? Is he maybe directly in Qardaha, al-Assad, the stronghold and the birthplace of their father, Hafiz? Is he hiding? Or is he just waiting it out? Or is he forming some sort of resistance of whatever is left of the Syrian Arab army that still might be loyal to him? Or is he teaming up with the rebel groups, not really loyal to the HTS? Where could he be?
Good afternoon, thanks for the opportunity. So unfortunately we cannot confirm his location, but what we know is that around 3,000 former Syrian soldiers left the country to Iraq, and Iraq very recently just announced a statement that they cannot call for an asylum in Iraq, which means that this is just a temporary situation, that those former Syrian army members should leave Iraq in the upcoming weeks or months. It depends on the internal situation, because Iraq would not like to be a place from where to launch a new insurgency against the government or the interim government which recently set up. So potentially this is one of the location of Maher, or we don't know the location of other major generals. This is, I think, very important to mention, and not to repeat the historical failures of Iraq, what happened after 2003. And probably the location can be Lebanon as well. Lebanon issued a statement as well that they're going to prosecute anyone who committed crimes against humanity, or which means that they won't be the place to host former leaders of the Syrian regime. But it can be the Alawite territories of Syria as well. This is very interesting that the recent day the Alawites leaders just issued a statement that they support the rebels, which I think is a very positive development recently, because we don't know exactly what's going to happen, and I think the major fear of the whole international community that the major tension would be not between the Christians and the interim government or rebels, but between the Hayat Tahrir al-Sham and the Alawite minority in the Mediterranean coast. So at the very moment, I'm more positive about the developments, but further question is about the national reconciliation issue. So there will be a phase of prosecution within Syria, or they try to launch a kind of national reconciliation process. We don't have, unfortunately, very positive examples from the recent years from the Middle East. Just remember what happened in Libya, what happened in Iraq, and of course the other question whether they will repeat the Baathification, what happened in Iraq. which is not only about the former army members, but political elite, complete change of the political elite. And this is a question whether Hayat Tahrir al-Sham has the capability to not only to form a government, but to run a country which is very different from Idlib province, which has a 4 million and a half population, and Syria is a more diverse issue, in my opinion.
Do you think that a real de-Baathification is actually possible in a country like Syria? That could mean not just removing the political elites or military elites, but going way lower in the state structure. Do you think this is actually possible?
I think it will depend on the reconciliation, and first of all, it will depend on the Hayat Tahrir al-Sham and the related allied groups that did this military maneuver or did this revolution that they spread through Syria. It is a positive sign that the Alawi community has already sided with them. The big question for me will be the Christians, because Christmas is coming up, so the Christians obviously will be very much in the focus of attention because of their public celebrations of their faith. I am hoping very much after this Alawi announcement, and also the announcements by Jolani himself. So I think that these rebels now maybe, just maybe, different from the former cases, Iraq and Libya. I sincerely hope that they have learned a lot from these examples, and they may try to use it. Why am I optimistic on that, or try to be optimistic on that, is that the statements that Jolani has made point to the fact that an inclusive Syria, everyone's Syria. I am not sure how strong the Ba'ath Party has been in the past few years in Syria. So I think it may just evaporate from the society. Obviously, local chiefs, local administration people, staff would be noted by the others. Everyone knew probably. The head of the district, for example, obviously was a party member. But the question will be if the society still has the energy after such a protracted fighting years, when several groups were fighting against other several groups, different ideas, or so do they really have the strength and the will to fight again? And I think this will be one of the main decisive questions. Obviously, the Hayat Tahrir al-Sham and Jolani tried to send messages towards the outside that we want to reconciliate, we want to re-establish the relations of Syria, not just within the Arab fold. Obviously, Syria has been received back to the Arab League just a year ago. Now they probably want to prove to the other Arab fellow states that this is rightly so, and they do not want to change anything with that. Otherwise, there will be no support coming in. Even this way, it will be a question. And also to the other side, to the non-Arab part of the world, they are trying to present themselves as an acceptable, reliable factor. But as László has just said, there will be a big question. It is one thing to govern a directorate or a governorate of a part of a country, and it is absolutely different when you are governing a state actor which has external relations, external obligations, demands by external powers to participate or not to participate, to take sides, and so on and so forth. We can only say that the flag in front of the Syrian embassy in Budapest has been changed already, which yet again, I know that László doesn't agree with me on that, but I think that at least on a very, very lower level of the society, de-Ba'athification may have just happened already or is well underway, and then of course it will be the leadership positions. The local doctor will not be sent away because he was a party member. And come on, we are living in Central Europe. We know what party membership is, right?
We unfortunately know all too well what party membership means. In my personal opinion, this is the process that's going to happen in Syria too. Like, we remove the party membership and party identity, but the people will remain the same. That would my rough guess be about the events. I have one question. Do you think the Khayrion actually has the capacity to govern a country as extensive and as complicated as Syria?
Well, first signs are very positive, I would say. So this interim government is very much similar to the government, the so-called Salvation government, which was formed in Idlib. And the prime minister is a technocrat, is graduated as an engineer. So I have some positive signs, but definitely it depends on the local developments as well as the international recognition. And the capabilities to pursue foreign relations, because without that, I mean, Syrian economy is under crisis, and there is a humanitarian situation which is very bad. Even before the fall of Assad regime, the UN report says that around half of the population needs food, so food security, water security is an issue at the very moment. And I think in the short term, they should integrate in the Syrian army and possibly to dissolve the Hayat Tahrir al-Sham itself, because this is the easiest solution to solve the issue that they are on the list of terrorist group in the United States, European Union, Turkey, and many other countries, and on the UN list as well. And United Nations is not the most important, unfortunately, at the very moment in world politics. However, it can be a first sign that there is a kind of international recognition. I fully agree with Erzsébet, and I think they learned the lesson of the Taliban government as well. The experience in 2021, which we can see that there is no country officially recognizing the Taliban 2.0 government, which leading to definitely to a very negative economic situation. So, but the other issue to raise is, of course, other rebel groups will approve this or not, whether they have the intention to fully integrate in the Syrian army and to accept the sovereignty of this government, at least the territory which is occupied by the rebels at the very moment. I think this is the question. And what happened very recently, the Syrian National Army in the north, which is, I would say, it's very close to Turkey, just launched an offensive against the Syrian Democratic Forces. They reoccupied Manbij city, which is not a Kurdish populated city. So we know that the Kurdish areas are larger than those territories which inhabited mainly by the Kurdish population. And I think this is one of the issues which they should deal with in the short term. And that's a question, of course, what can they do with the so-called de facto autonomous territory of the Kurdish, and definitely there is a Turkish interest to somehow dissolve this autonomous territory and marginalize the Kurdish forces. It seems there is not much US support at the moment. In the case of Manbij, the US announced that Kurdish forces should withdraw from this territory, which is an interesting sign. So this is also a question how external actors will shape the Syrian internal dynamics, because this is, I think, one of the issues.
I would just like to add to what László has just said, that the behavior of the external powers will be very important. And here we have an example, namely the Hamas. When in 2006 the Hamas won a democratically held election, then all the Western world was adamant that no, we are not talking to a terrorist organization. And now there seems to be a similar situation since Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, as was said before, is registered internationally as a terrorist organization. What's more, the head of it, Jolani, is targeted especially, and there is money put on his head.
$10 million.
Yeah. So this will be a big question if the international community, namely the West, the United States and the European countries, are ready to talk to him for the sake of a bigger public benefit. I think that will be a decisive question. And on the other hand as well, as László has just said, it will be very important if Hayat Tahrir al-Sham or personally Jolani has the capability to talk to include in his foreseen inclusive Syria all the other elements. And as far as we understand, there is a lot of hope in Syria, in all the different regions, but at the same time there is a lot of fear as well, partly because of the infights between the different groups of the past few years, partly because of old grievances and old threats. Should we be afraid of the Muslim majority who may want or may not want to take revenge for previous crimes by the Assad regime? Or can the Alawites be accepted not only as the background of the Assad family and regime, but as people who were also parts of the joint Syria? So there are several questions, and the international community has a very, very big responsibility, and probably there is no good answer. Should we talk to them or we shouldn't? But we also have to say that it is not just Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, but as was said, in Idlib there was already a kind of a coexistence and co-governance of certain previously armed groups. The big question will be who is going to collect the arms? Or the other big question will be if these armed forces will be included into the state-recognized armed forces to be parts of the state armed structure as well. Anyhow, Syria, the new Syria, if there is a new inclusive Syria, will also have to rebuild its armed forces from the bottom up.
Do you think there's a realistic chance that Hayat Tahrir al-Sham and especially Jolani would give up their leading position at the moment to gain more favorable reactions from abroad, especially the West?
I am not sure. Why should he? He could be the head of the armed forces, and then that's where he is, right?
Or from the legal point of view, Syria is a presidential system. So after the resignment of Bashar al-Assad, the position of president is empty at the moment, but de facto Jolani is the president himself, and he appointed the interim government, which I mentioned. It's a technocrat government, and definitely he will be not the one who will resign or leave the presidential position to another person, because I think the military balance is in favor of him.
Not even if a Taliban 2.0 scenario?
Taliban is Afghanistan. This is Syria. That's an absolutely different story. The Taliban, Afghanistan has always been a kind of far away from everyone else. Everyone wanted to come. They could never succeed. Now Syria, ever since the most ancient times, has been the place of coexistence of very different peoples at the same time together. A lot of trade going on, people towards the inland, towards the sea, very much open, so I think we cannot compare it.
It's true, but on the other hand, probably there will be a kind of Western pressure, and especially there is the UN resolution 2254, which calling for a genuine political transition in Syria. So it's Hayat Tahrir al-Sham and Jolani who has to define what this political transition means. so new constitution and that kind elections at some point. What kind of elections and how to proceed with those things? I think this will be on the agenda, which prevents somehow the international community to play a more significant role in Syria. Especially here I'm speaking about the international sanctions lifting, which would be very important for the Syrian regime to survive economically as well.
If I'm not mistaken, the Syrian regime would need about 4 billion euros to be rebuilt, to rebuild the whole country. Do you think Khayrion, under the leadership of Giuliani, is capable of maintaining foreign relations at a level that would bring this kind of investment in the country?
I think foreign relations, yes, but not to the level, because I think this is a problem that the major external stakeholders in the Syrian issue are a bit tired and lose its interest in the Syrian transition. So we can look in the Gulf countries. They are most interested in banning the Captagon trade rather than to see a genuine political transition. Gulf states are more focusing at the moment on Gulf issues and global issues rather than the Syrian transition. We have here Turkey with a huge interest in shaping the country's future, but unfortunately again Turkey is not in the position. However, who supported financially Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, it was Qatar through Turkey. So there is a potential of a Qatari financial contribution, and especially Qatar is thinking about an investment in a gas pipeline crossing Syrian territory to Turkey from Qatar reaching to Europe. It's a potential, in my opinion. It has the potential to help Syria, but unfortunately not in the short term. There is China, which we remember that Assad regime signed the Belt and Road Initiative bilateral agreement, but however China has no interest in investing in an unstable country. And we have of course the European countries, and we know they host around 1 million Syrian refugees at the moment. So probably they are most interested in helping the Syrian regime to stabilize, to send back those refugees. So just yesterday Austria announced that they will €1,000 for all Syrian migrants who has the willingness to return to Syria. But unfortunately, because of political reasons, it will be not a slow process. And I think it will be Turkey which will send back first the 3 to 4 million registered and non-registered migrants, which will not help the country in economic terms. So unfortunately, because of these political issues, I think the European Union or members of the European Union will be not the leading countries in financing the Syrian transition, but they have the highest stake and interest in the process itself.
Fine. My last question is, what's going to happen with the Captagon trade? We know that was one of the most significant sources of income for the Assad administration. What will happen now?
At the very moment, what we know that Hayat Tahrir al-Sham occupied those factories which producing the Captagon and confiscated all Captagon tablets, but and it seems it's a gesture to the international community and especially to Gulf countries to ban Captagon trade by the Hayat Tahrir al-Sham. So it's again a positive sign and positive experience. But definitely the reason behind this, they asking for some financial help from those Gulf countries, and I'm not 100% sure whether they have the intention to finance Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, especially from Saudi Arabia and United Arab Emirates. Usually they don't like the so-called Salafist movements, so I'm a bit skeptical about that kind of gesture will help the Syrian regime to survive. And definitely if there is not enough income or no investment from the external stakeholders, then unfortunately we remember that it was the major income source for the Assad regime. So probably they will restart production in a different way, I mean private or something like that, definitely not official level, because it will not help their global image.
Thank you very much for this fruitful discussion, and I hope to see you again very soon. Thank you for watching.